New topic today. What are the questions you can ask on a first date, US versus Korea?
When you're getting to know someone for the first time.
Yes, you went on a first date with this person. What kind of questions you want to ask, or you can ask, or you can't?
Okay. So I can't speak for all, but framing it in a way where you are a working professional, maybe?
That's a good point.
Okay.
I think it could be really different depending on
Yeah.
the age, but I think, let's say you're in mid-20s to mid-30s.
Okay.
Yeah, you're working.
Yeah.
And the other
That's
person's
cool.
working too.
Okay. Yeah. Probably the biggest thing would be like, oh, what do you do? What do you like to do?
Yes, what do you do in your pastime?
Yeah.
What do you do for a living? And
Where are you from?
right, where are you from?
Probably ask about your, like, you have any siblings?
Yeah, your age. It's okay to ask your age on the first date,
of course.
right?
Yeah.
In the US.
Yeah.
Okay. So, do you have a pet? Or where do you live?
Yeah. It's pretty like basic questions. Get to know someone at not like a surface level, but just it's not like diving deep into their personal life quite yet. Really
So,
weird.
can you ask the street of your address?
No.
It could be a little creepy to ask those.
It's weird. You just say, oh, are you from around the area? And they'll probably say, oh, I'm like in the east side or the north side or in this neighborhood or
Yeah,
something.
so you give the information of where you live, like roughly
Yeah,
in the States.
roughly.
Right? But
Yeah.
in Korea, you can ask specific street or apartment. They guess.
Wait, why?
Let's say we are dating in Korea on the first date. I ask you, oh, so where do you live? And you may ask, oh, I live in Jamsil. Jamsil is kind of a neighborhood. And I can ask specific street. Oh, Jamsil? Which apartment? That's apartment complex. And that's not something sounding weird.
Do you don't think that's creepy at all? Like, oh, why do you want to know specifically
No.
where I live, which complex I live in?
You can just brush off, of course.
Okay.
Somewhere there.
Okay.
Type of things, but
Is it because of like it's a landmark or a meeting point there where you kind of
no, they're just
identify?
curious.
Okay, interesting.
And then I think they can guess how well you are in like your living situation is.
Okay.
You can tell by where you live. Also, I think there are a lot of questions Americans would find super weird to ask on the first date.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, the questions that Koreans ask on the first date. For example, asking what you do for a living is common
Yeah.
in both countries.
Right.
But I think Koreans oftentimes ask how much you make.
What?
Yeah, so it's kind of I think these days it became almost just really like natural follow-up question after the occupation question.
Really? So it's like straight up like, oh, how much do you make?
Yeah, so let's say I asked you, hey, what do you do for a living? And you say, I'm the furniture designer.
Okay.
And I would be like, oh, that's interesting. I have never met a furniture designer. Then how much do they make?
Oh, like
How much do you make?
like very general kind of.
You can ask how much do you make?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, roughly. But they pretend they are curious.
Okay.
Yeah, yes, they are curious. But yeah, I think it's more like getting the information of how much this person makes. And I think that's a sad part in Korea. And they are all about money. All about money. Yeah, I think I can say this pretty openly because I think these days people are aware how much they are focused on money. And when you ask this person how much they make, and as soon as they know this person is making this amount of money, they kind of level set each other.
Does it matter whether you are a female or a male? Like, who's the one that be asking those questions? Or is
Well,
it pretty balanced?
it depends. From guys' perspective, I think it used to be like they want to meet someone, a girl, who, yes, of course, it'll be better if she has a better job, but traditionally, guys wanted a girl who makes a little less money than them for their ego. But these days, I see a lot of guys just want a girl who makes this more money.
But like, for why? Like, why is it such an important question to ask, or like information for them to know the cost of living there? And
Yeah, I think that's been a social like shit. I didn't say social thing. I said social shit because they rank people based on their income or based on their like social status. I think that's the sad part of it. Yeah. And yeah, that's the question that people ask on first date.
I think if someone asks how much do you make on the first date here, you'll probably not have a second date with them. It's almost taboo to ask.
Right. Even between friends.
Yeah, you don't really, unless you're like super close with them, you might be very curious to ask, like, oh, well, how much do you really make there? But if you were to ask someone directly, it's kind of strange. It's like asking, like, what's your weight? Almost.
That's another question.
Do they ask that to you on the first date?
No, not to a girl, but to guys. I mean, girls don't ask that question because they're not curious. Because, you see them and then, yeah, roughly, they're in whatever shape. But asking height, even before meeting up, is not weird.
I think height is okay. I mean, it is what it is. You can probably eyeball it. And if someone
Yeah,
says they're
right.
like, I don't know, if I say I'm like 5'7", you're like, stop joking. Stop it.
And I think these days you can ask if they had plastic surgery.
Really?
Yeah, I think it became a topic that you can talk more openly about.
Okay.
Back in the days, you wanted to hide the fact that you had plastic surgery. These days, getting your nose done or getting your eyes done, that became something you can say very openly.
Yeah, I don't know how it is here because I would say compared to Korea, the number of people who get into plastic surgery is not as high. But I also think if it ever comes up in conversation, generally nowadays it would be more open to it. At least they won't have some type of judgment towards those who decide to get something done, like Botox or whatever. I don't think it's anything that's negative or would like negatively impact a person's opinion about someone who actually that does like something. But I don't think that ever would be a conversation, at least immediately on the first date.
What about sexual things?
Maybe. I think it really depends on how the conversation's going. So it seems like you guys are pretty much being very open, and then maybe the topic of like your sexual preferences or whatever might come up. It really depends. It really depends. Because some people, even on the first date, if it goes so well, they might even go home together too.
Yeah, in Korea, I think it's usually almost taboo to talk about sexual things on the first date.
Oh, really?
You may be seen a little
Easy.
pervy or easy.
Pervy. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Also, first date, they might ask you like when was your last relationship? Or why that didn't work out.
Yeah, I think it's more common here in the US to talk about your past relationships, whereas in Korea, they don't talk about it.
Oh, at all.
No.
So, do you ask them when was your last relationship?
Yeah, I think you can talk about it.
Okay.
But
if they say like, oh, it was like a month ago, wouldn't you want to like inquire why it didn't work out or why they are dating again so soon?
But I think here in the US, people can talk about their past partner openly with more details. Yeah, like he was working for this company and then we met through this and then it didn't work out. Like we lived together. But in Korea, I think you can ask up to this question. When was your last relationship? Why it didn't work out? And the other person will answer just yes or no type-ish. The person wouldn't share more details, I guess.
It really depends on them. Here you can be vague about it if you want to, but I do think the reason why people ask why you think your relationship didn't work out in the past or something like that, it kind of tells them how you are as a person too. So if you are to share about your ex and you only say like negative things, almost like blaming them for why the relationship failed, and it could be true, like maybe you got cheated on or something, but people say that if someone's talking shit about their ex, it's almost sometimes a red flag.
Unless they
did something really terrible.
Yeah, cheated or did something really terrible.
Yeah, right.
What could be other questions?
Hobbies, favorite memories or travel experience. Are you like a homebody person? Are you adventurous? Are you a clean freak? MBTI maybe, but it's not it's not even like a common topic to talk about here, I don't think. Maybe nowadays it's different.
Do even people know what MBTI is?
Yeah, because back in the day, I took that test when I remember when I was like in middle school or something. And that was a way to help you determine maybe your career path in a sense. It was like more geared towards learning about your strengths and potential areas for improvement. and like what careers that might be compatible with your personality type?
In Korea, it seems like everyone knows what every MBTI means. When you say like EJ, whatever, ENJ,
TJ.
ENTJ?
Yeah.
Yeah, when you say ENTJ, and everyone fucking immediately know what it means.
That's impressive. I'm still like trying to understand what each of the four like categories and buckets are.
The only thing I know is the difference between E and I. Yeah.
Yeah, that's impressive. Like there are so many nuances in like between each personality type, like strengths and weaknesses, and like there are so many things to remember. And it seems like folks in Korea just know it from the back of their mind. Like
It's not even a question to ask. Hey, they don't ask a question like, oh, do you know your MBTI?
oh,
They straight up ask questions. What's your MBTI?
yeah, it's kind of similar vibe with like horoscopes. I don't know if that's a thing in
Horoscopes?
like zodiac and horoscope.
Oh, zodiac.
Yeah, it's like here you're like, oh, are you an Aries? Are you?
Oh.
What's your sign? Probably more common than MBTI.
But not everyone knows their zodiac sign here.
I think people tend to know it better than their MBTI.
I don't know my zodiac sign, even though I was told. Yeah, anyway, MBTI is huge. I think that's gonna be very first question that Koreans ask
Oh, really?
on the first date.
Is that more important than asking about someone's income?
That's a good question. I don't know. I think
really
I have to bring in Korean guests. I'm Korean, of course, but I have been away from Korea for a few years.
Yeah.
So.
Right. What about asking if someone wants to get married or like the amount of kids that they want? Is that something that Koreans are open to talking to about on the first date?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think they like to be really straightforward and wasting no time.
Yeah, right.
And I think that's part of the reasons they ask that. Hey, what do you do for a living? And what's your income? And are you intending to find someone, get married, or do you want kids? How many? And I think when you're old enough, they can ask about your family culture as well.
Oh yeah, sure.
Do you do 차례? 차례 means kind of Confucianism ceremony that you do. If you find this family is doing this Confucianism ceremony every
More traditional.
every holidays, it could mean as daughter-in-law, you have to be involved in all those like headache things.
Making certain foods, lots of small side dishes, right?
Yes.
Kind of.
It's a lot of work.
That's interesting because here in the U.S., like you have a mixed pot of cultures and ethnicities. You could meet someone whose family participated in those holidays and those practices and traditions. But that's like you're never gonna ask like, oh, does your family like, do this, and this? Even if your family doesn't necessarily mean that you yourself or the person you're talking to is involved as much here. So the topic of family does come up, but I think either maybe the mindset has shifted because people are more open to just being straightforward and what they're looking for, or because back then when I was dating, I was younger. But the topic of asking like, do you want kids and stuff like that could seem a little bit too bold back then.
Right.
Like, oh, it's just a first date and you're already asking about marriage and like first kids is like having kids, like this is a little bit intense.
Right.
But thinking back, I wonder, is it because of like the social norm, or is it because the age that we were in that felt like this was just a little bit too personal or like too much to ask within the first date?
Yeah, I think largely because of the age.
Yeah. But now, let's say if we were to date now within like our 30s or whatever, it's totally fine to talk about like how many kids you want. Do you even want kids? If you don't want kids,
I think you have to ask first, do you have kids?
Yeah. Were you married at some point? Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if my date says, oh yeah, actually, yeah, I went to a theme park like last weekend with my kids.
Anyway, yeah, I think in terms of questions, I guess, in general, here in the US, it really depends on the person you're meeting and how open you are. But we can agree that in the US, you never, on the first date, ever dive deep into someone's like salary or income or your address.
It's creepy as hell.
Yeah.
If you're Korean watching this and somehow if you are dating Americans, don't ask where they live. Anyway, yeah, it was fun to talk about those differences of questions that you ask on the first date in the States and in Korea.
Similarities too.
Right.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, it's a first day.